Hi and salams everyone that's watching this video. So if you are aware, I hosted an event and this event was based around how to own your own land and where to begin your search. And that event actually sold out. So there was quite a few, or not quite a few, quite a lot of people who actually contacted me just expressing the fact that they would have really loved to attend the event, but obviously tickets were sold out. Is there any way for them to be able to still access this information? And that is why I thought, you know what I'm probably going to do is I'll just record me doing a presentation on this. Obviously I could not record the event because number one, I wanted it to be a space where people will feel comfortable asking questions. Maybe they might reveal something that's quite personal and they maybe not want to have that broadcasted to the world. So that's the reason why, and I hope you all understand why I couldn't record any of the events that I hosted on Zoom. So I'm just going to go through this presentation. Unfortunately, there isn't going to be the guest speaker part because that's just something that you have to experience live. But at least you would have access to this information and hopefully it would be useful. So again, this is going to be a quick presentation walkthrough on how to own land in the UK and how to basically begin your search, because that is like the number one question that people always ask. Where do I begin? How do I begin? Where do I go for this information? So hopefully this might be a bit clear. Now, Micro Communities is an organization that I have built from scratch. And the idea, again, is to, one, share all of this information with people who maybe want to, start this journey of becoming self-sufficient. And again, create these networks amongst ourselves and connect people to find information and find like-minded people as well. So just a little bit about me for those who maybe are coming across this video and they don't know who I am. My name is Midi and I'm actually a permaculture consultant. I have been doing this for the last now 9 years now. And also I am a herbalist as well. So in terms of my permaculture background, I mainly focus on social permaculture, which is a branch of permaculture and is a lot more community focused, building communities. And I do a lot of homestead designs, small scale farming. I am a beekeeper, so I like to share a lot of my beekeeping knowledge. And again, information on livestock, that could be chickens, that could be bees, that could be sheep. And in terms of my herbalism background, I am from the wonderful, wonderful country of Nigeria, which is actually in the west coast of Africa. So I have a lot of experience, especially in African herbs and medicinal plants, but also I do have some knowledge on Eastern and also Western medicine. So I am in the process of getting my actual medical herbalism license in order to be able to practice Western medicine as well. So my philosophy is very, very simple. In terms of when it comes to animals and plants, when they're nurtured the right ways, only then you will taste the medicinal sweetness of what it has to offer. And I am a real big, big believer in terms of food is medicine. And I am a believer as well that if we do things the right way, if we nurture our animals the right way, if we tend to our plant and tend to the earth the right way, then you would really, really reap that benefit. Now, just a bit of my journey and my permaculture career in the last 9 years, I've had I've had the opportunity to work with some amazing organizations, from the mosque, to different charities and schools. I really like the idea of really spreading, permaculture, to everyone, because I do believe that it is one way of, one way of really connecting and living sustainably. I've had the wonderful opportunities around the UK, whether it's local to me. I'm based in London, but also up and down the country, and I've also had a wonderful opportunities to establish projects internationally as well. These are some of the projects that I've done, both here and abroad. And recently, I've been very blessed to also win a couple of awards due to my projects that I've hosted. So enough about me. Again, you're here to know how to own land in the UK and how to begin your search. Where do I begin? So just a bit of a background story. I actually posted, I think it was on my WhatsApp status, the question in terms of, if you had an opportunity and you have somebody that could answer these questions, what questions would you like to ask them? And that's how this actually began, because I received so many questions of people asking exactly different parts of the journey. And I thought, do you know what? One, I'm going to answer the top 5 questions. And also 2, I'm going to invite somebody who will actually speak about their experience, because they've been through it. Well, don't hear it from me, hear it from somebody who's actually been through it and can give you their story, and you can ask some more questions about their story. So that's what I'm going to be addressing today, addressing the top 5 questions in this presentation. Obviously, in the live event, we had an open discussion. It was beautiful. People, sharing things and asking more questions. And then in that event, I did have a guest speaker. Obviously, she's not going to be here to tell her story, but I will be happy to give you some introduction about her, and again, how to contact her if you want more information, or you can just join our wonderful Telegram group, where you can be able to ask more of these questions, and then we can be able to help you. So our most popular question: what websites do you recommend? That was the popular question that I received when I shared that WhatsApp status. Again, what websites, what do you recommend? So the first website that I mainly recommend is UK Land and Farms. It is a great source, especially for somebody who is a beginner. It's great. It is exactly what the title says: land and farms. So you can't really go wrong with that. Now, On the Market, again, is a wonderful place. But On the Market is actually known for properties, but they actually have a land section. So my recommendation is that when you type in On the Market, put On the Market land in the Google search, and then it will transfer you to the actual land page. Because if you're not aware of it, you wouldn't know that they have a land page, and you would be thinking, where are all of the lands? And Rightmove, again, is another website. It's mainly known for properties, but it does have a land section as well. So you may find that quite useful. Now, these are some websites that if you're not in the farming community, or if you're not in the permaculture community, you may not have heard about them, but that's why I thought it'd be nice to share this. So Farmers Weekly is a wonderful website again, and is mainly geared to land and farms. Farming UK is great, especially if you're looking for like quite a large amount of acres. So it could be like, 20 acres, 30 acres, 50 acres. You would mainly find them on here. And then Property Link. I love Property Link because we're all busy, right? We don't want to spend our time clicking and clicking and clicking away. And some of the other websites, they may actually show the place, but then you have to click on the link, right, to then view how large the space is, where it is. Whilst with Property Link, it all has that there. So as you're scrolling, you have all the information there, and then you only click on it if you want more information. So that's why I really, really love Property Link. Now, the second popular question is, where in the UK do you recommend to buy land? So again, it was quite hard for me to answer this question because when I usually deal with clients who are looking for land, the first consultation is to talk about, your expectations, your budget, all of these different things. Whilst in this case, obviously, I'm speaking to, 200-300 people, but I'm going to kind of guide you, and then hopefully some of the guide and questions would then help you understand maybe where to buy the land, or where you should focus, should I say, focus your energy on. Now, north of England, out of the whole UK, the north of England is the cheapest. It is really cheap, but it is cheap for a reason. The downside is that, further up north is a lot colder. So in the winter, it could be really harsh. You are definitely going to get snow. The summers are quite short, even though they're warm, they are quite short. And it can be quite challenging if you are going down the route of wanting to be fully off grid. So maybe you want to, have your own solar panels, and it can be a little bit challenging. Just think outside the box. It's not impossible, but just think outside the box. And there are really, really great content now on YouTube that's coming out of people living in those places. And I'm sure it's livable, right? Because people exist up in the north. So it's not impossible. It's just something that you need to be mindful of. Now, the south of England, again, they call it the Gardens of England, and you can only imagine why. This is because the summer is warm. It's the warmest region of the UK, basically. The summers are really, really warm, and then the winters are quite mild in comparison to the north. But the downside is that it is expensive. Now, for some people, maybe according to their budget, this might actually work well for them. Maybe it's within their budget, but for others who may have a really tight budget, then yes, you might feel the pinch on this one. When it comes to especially the southeast region, so we are talking, like London, Essex, Kent, it is really expensive. And again, if you gravitate towards the west as well, I'm talking maybe like Hertfordshire, them places. Again, you're going to see an increase per acre. But it's just something to be mindful of. Now, the Midlands, is a nice in between. So it's not as warm as the south, but when you compare it to the north, it's quite warm. The prices are quite average, so you get a very average, yeah, very, very average. But as you head towards the East Midlands, maybe towards like Norfolk, that kind of area, and as you head towards the west as well, then you're going to start to notice the would start to increase. And obviously around these areas, the closer you go to the coast, the more you'll be worried about flooding. So that is something that you need to be mindful of when picking the right land? That would be one of the questions that I ask on behalf of clients or encourage clients to ask. Flooding. Now, Wales is another popular place where people tend to gravitate to buy land, but please don't underestimate Wales. Wales is a huge place. So again, you are going to get different climates in Wales as you head towards the north. It is going to be a bit more colder, and you may get you may experience a bit more of the harsher winter there. And as you head towards the south, it would be a lot warmer again, like any other place where there is north and south. But towards the south of Wales, again, Pembrokeshire is another popular place that people tend to think of when they go to Wales. That area is going to be quite expensive. So the northern part of Wales is a bit more cheaper. But the landscape, I mean, the view is absolutely amazing. I've been to Wales a couple of times. I've helped clients again in Wales, help them with their journey of purchasing land. And every time we drive down with the kids, they love it. But one thing that is true that you need to be aware of is that it does rain. It does rain constantly. So if you're somebody that can't handle constant rain, then maybe, I would definitely say go to these places that you are maybe looking to purchase land and stay there a couple of times and get the feel of the place and climate first before, committing to something. So again, to come back to the question, where should I buy land? Like I said, you have to think of three main things. First thing is budget. How much can you afford? Are you willing to compromise on the size just to be in the location that you want? Again, climate. Are you someone who can tolerate the cold or the heat very well? So people are different. I know for me, I can't tolerate the cold. I love warmer climates. So maybe Scotland may not be the place for me to be. Are you somebody who gets really miserable when it's raining? Or are you someone who looks forward to the snow? So these are some questions you need to ask yourself. And the big one for me that I feel like is important is the community. Are they warm and are they accepting? Are they helpful? Are they like-minded, like myself, in terms of I'm a homeschooling mum? Will they be maybe other homeschooling parents in that area? So are they like-minded in that way? Will they tolerate and be respectful to your belief system and your culture? So this is something that I think is the most important, in my opinion, because when you're purchasing, just like even a property, you want to make sure that your neighbors are tolerant and to have a good experience. So again, these are the main three questions, and based on that, I think you'll be able to then zone in on which part of the UK may be the best place to purchase land. So we did have a quick break here where we did a little kind of where I asked the question, if you were a potato, how would you like to be presented? And we had some amazing, I'm saying, people say potato, the chips and rosemary, mashed. It was lovely. So I'm going to ask you this question as well. If you were a potato, how would you like to be presented? And please feel free to comment in the comment down below. I feel like comment down below. It will be lovely. I said I would love to be presented as mash. I know others said curly fries. And this is an opportunity as well if you want to just quickly just get a cup of tea. So please take that time to do so. Now, I am going to bring your attention, as you're thinking about what to comment, I'm going to bring your attention to a project that Micro Communities is doing, that I am leading. So it's called the Farmstead Community. And the idea is that we're going to be building this wonderful community based around permaculture. So we are in the process of looking for like-minded families, 20 of them. So if you are somebody who would love to have a homestead and be part of a community, please do feel free to register your interest. I know I've been going through emails for the last couple of days, and we've had a lot of interest. So again, we can only basically take on board 20 like-minded families. So just be aware of that. So if this is something that does interest you, please do get onto microcommunities.org.uk and please register your interest. Now, I went through going through all of the comments, but it will be really wonderful to be able to see how you would like to be presented. So I can't wait to see that. Now, the third question was how to know if this is the right land to buy. Now, I have taken a screenshot of a property. Now, this was, I think, on UK Land and Farms website. So this is how the profile tends to be presented. And at a glance, you think, wow, this is a beautiful piece of land. There's 54.5 acres. It may be within a budget that I want, £255,000. This is brilliant. Maybe I should go and make that journey to have a look at the land. So I'm going to kind of walk you through what I would usually do before contacting the agent to do a viewing. Because the last thing you want, especially for myself, I'm based in London, Yorkshire could be about 5 or 6 hours. I don't want to drive down there to then be disappointed because there's a lot of time and resources. Now, I've taken some screenshots and to bring your attention to what I am viewing when going through this profile. The first thing that I have noticed is that it says at the first arrow, hill pasture. So the land extends to approximately 5.5 acres of hill pasture. Now, if you are someone, maybe a surveyor or within the permaculture community or within a farming community, pasture land comes with its own set of legal requirements. So just to have that in place, not all land are the same. And depending on how the land is registered, there may be certain things you can or cannot do. So again, I'm mainly talking about agricultural lands, by the way. So when it comes to properties, that's a whole nother area. But all of this is about how to purchase agricultural land, because agricultural land is actually the cheapest land in comparison to buying a house that has a space around it. So people may not be aware that pasture land, when something is called pasture land, it actually means that you are not allowed to disturb the land and the landscape. The main things that are allowed on this land is basically grazing animals. So that would be sheep, that would be even goats a little bit, but anything that will just graze the land and won't disturb it. So as you can imagine, I'm going to take you through this journey. When you're traveling to the countryside, one thing that you don't want to see is different buildings and caravans or stuff like that. Usually when you're driving, you go, oh wow, look at the view. Oh, look at the sheep and the horses. Wow. I can guarantee you those lands that you're seeing are actually permanent pasture land. It is being placed in the contracts that you can't have anything other than that on there. So if you're somebody who wants to maybe have a flock of sheep, then this is perfect for you. There's nothing to worry about. But if you were somebody who wanted to grow off of the land and put a caravan on there and live rural, then this is definitely not the place for you. The next arrow, if you can see, I'm going to read the first sentence. It says, a right of access by foot and with vehicles over the vendor's retained land to the west is to be agreed and Agreed. So for me, that's a little bit worrying because usually when you're looking at land, it will tell you your boundaries of where you can access your land. If you're now saying that we have to wait until the contract to agree where this access is going to be, that's already, I'm a bit more curious because now I'm thinking, can anybody else access my land? Why is it that we have to wait to the contract? Why can't you present where this access point is? So that's what I'm thinking. Now, if you move to the second block and the third arrow, I've noticed that it's in Yorkshire. Now, I'm in London. I have to think about first my distance. Am I happy to keep traveling back and forth from London to Yorkshire because my family may still be in London? So that could be one thing. The second thing is as well, I know that Yorkshire is known for its beauty. So I'm looking at it based in Yorkshire. I'm looking at the price, 54.5 acres for just under a quarter of a mil. That seems really, really sometimes a bit too good to be true. So now I'm flicking through the pictures and all I'm seeing is just sheeps and I don't see, like if you look in the picture, I don't see any buildings around. I don't see any other animals. It's just sheep, basically, grazing animals. So that is something that's enough for me to click on the brochure and get a bit more information before committing to contacting the agent and then doing a viewing and traveling 5.5 hours down. Now, when I actually Googled the postcode on, and so you can do this. This is the first thing that I tell people to do is take the postcode, Google it, and see and put it and go on Google Maps and see where the land is. I'm going to bring your attention, and if you notice, there is a patch of areas that are really dark green, and there are a patch that are light green. Now, if you look at what the tab is, it falls under the bit that is dark green. And here, I'm going to read it out if you can't see. It says Yorkshire Dales National Park. And next to here, the next dark green says Forest Trot Bowland AONB. Now, AONB stands for something about outstanding natural beauty. I can't remember what the A stands for, but the ONB stands for outstanding natural beauty. Now, when you have an area where there's national park or outstanding beauty, that means that this area has even harsher restrictions compared to any other land that falls outside of it. So I'm going to read out what is national park because that's where this land falls under. These are lands that are within national parks can have strict restrictions. The council are less likely to be flexible when it comes to planning permission, and the neighbours will watch you like a hawk. Now, again, these areas is where people travel from, even internationally. They drive down to these areas because of the beauty. They want to see the views, they want to see the rolling hills, they want to see the mountains, right? So because of that, the council has to protect this area. And can you imagine if you've purchased a house and you purchase this house because you want to see the beautiful view, and then somebody, your neighbor, purchased the land next to you and puts a huge big house on there or a caravan on there, that may make you frustrated and maybe even angry, because that's not the reason why. You want to be able to open your windows to see the view. So this is the reason why these spaces tends to be really, really harsh in restrictions, i.e. permanent pasture land, So again, it really depends. If you're somebody who wants to be off grid and you want to have that creativity to be able to put anything up, a caravan, maybe a van, or maybe a cute little cabin or something like that, then these areas may not be the most popular place to go to, because you will have real battles with the council, and that can get quite frustrating, especially if you put in thousands of pounds, into purchasing this land. Now, these are the things that you need to consider when looking at property. When looking at land and you're looking at the profiles to see if this is the right land for you. The first one is restrictions. Are there any restrictions on this land? So if you're somebody who wants to have a farm and grazing animals, then permanent pasture, again, is not something that would be something that you would get frustrated with. If you're somebody who wants to maybe grow on a large scale or grow your own food, then I would say maybe look for arable land, agricultural land, arable land. These are, lands that would work in your favor. If you're somebody who likes to have horses, then maybe you want to make sure that you have equestrian rights or equestrian land, basically. So again, number one, restrictions. Number two, you want to think about overage. Now, overage is something that creeps up on people that they don't realize. So here I'm going to read out the overage on this this land. It says here, the property will be sold with an overage for any development other than agricultural or equestrian purposes. And this will apply to any residential development, commercial development, or renewable energy. The rate will be 30% for 35 years from the completion date and payable on the grant of a valid planning consent. So that basically means that if you purchase this land and within now to the next 35 years, you decided to put a planning permission, for example, to maybe build a house on there, what happens is from the moment that planning permission is granted, what will happen is it will basically, you will have to pay the person who you bought the land from, you will have to pay them an extra 30% of what the value that you paid for. So if the land was, again, in this case, £255,000, you will have to calculate 30% of that, and that is how much you owe now the previous seller, because you broke the terms and condition. They don't want this space to have a house on there, especially for the next 35 years. So that is something. 35 years is actually quite good. There's some places that they have it for 80 years, some even for 150 years. So you don't want to then end up having to go through this legal courts of the previous seller now taking you to court because he wants 30% more money from you. So that is something you need to be aware of. Third thing you have to be aware of is public footpaths. Do I own full access to my land, or is there parts of my land where the public can walk? So I'm going to bring your attention down to the last box on the right, just under overage. It says there is a public footpath following the southern boundary of the property. So again, let's just say you've purchased this land, but you want your privacy because you're going to be living off grid. That may be an issue because you're going to have publicly people walking on your land and you can't tell them get off my land because they have the right to walk on there. If you're somebody like myself who wants to build a farm, I love the fact that on one part of my land there's the public, because then that's free advertisement. So again, why is it that you're buying land? The fourth thing you need to think about is, again, added tax and legal fees. Because just because the land is £255,000, you have to think about the tax that I'm going to pay on top of that. You have to think about my legal fees. Do I have to pay my solicitors? The tests that I need to do. Some of these tests could be £500 each, £1,000 each. So these are the things that you need to think about. So if your budget is £250,000, my guess would be to find lands that are way below that, because you have to also think about your legal fees. Again, tenure or private treaty, people see these words, but they don't really understand what it actually means. So tenure or private treaty, tenure, if it's private treaty, it just means if you like the land, you tell the agent, I want this land, and the person who owns the land says, okay, I agree, and then takes it off the market. And then you do the legal things that. If it's tenure, what that basically means is this is the land the seller is selling. There may be 5 people who are interested in purchasing this land, right? And what you then have to do is you have to basically write a letter to the farmer or the person who owns this land to then say why they should pick you. So it's almost like a little bit of a competition. You have to convince the seller to sell to you and not the other 4 parties. So you need to be aware of that, because just because you like it and you tell them, I like it, I'm going to put a deposit on, they may say, hold on a second, this isn't, there's no point putting a deposit. You have to convince the seller, and here is the form to fill out to say, write down why we should sell to you and how much you're willing to pay. So that can sometimes actually start a bidding war. So be aware of that. And the last one, number 6, it will have here vacant possession. That basically means if you're purchasing this land, are there going to be people still living on there? I know this may sound really, really silly, but there have been times where people have purchased land, right? Everything, the sale's gone through, they've now gone to the land and there's people on there, and legally you can't kick them off because they've had a contract with the previous seller to be on there for the next year. And they will say, but when you looked at your profile, did it not tell you that there was going to be people on there, that you should be aware of that? In some cases, it could be farmers that have already put their crop into the land because they're leasing the land. So if you are now going to kick them off, you may have to pay them because they've put money into putting in their crops. Now, if they're going to be leaving, they need compensation because, again, they have to harvest their crop and sell. So that's something you have to be aware of. So again, I think if you stick to these 6 things of looking at the profile, then hopefully you should be safe. And always ask questions. That's what the agent is there for. Ask them these questions. What are the restrictions? What are the overage? Are there any public footpaths? What are the legal fees on top? Are there any tests that has to be done? Is it private treaty? Meaning that, that's it. Once I say I want it and I put a deposit on, you take it off of the market? Or is it a tenure? Do I have to bid basically and prove to the farmer that I can purchase it? I have the money to purchase it, proof of purchase, I've got the finance, and I can take this on board? Or is there going to be anybody still on the land when I purchase that? So extra things that I've put on here is, again, your rights. Do you have rights? Maybe if there's a bit of a woodland, do you have rights to be able to use the wood and process the trees? Another thing that you have to be aware of is, again, sporting rights. So in this particular ad, it actually has, I think it was another ad, it says that there will be third-party shooting rights, meaning that other people can come on your land and shoot. That might be a bit awkward, to have other people with guns coming on your land and can be able to shoot your pheasants or whatever. So again, be very, very mindful to read the contract before signing, or read the ad before committing and making that journey down. So the first page, the previous page, was about a land that I may not be suitable for myself if I wanted to live sustainably off the land. But I thought, let me show you a post of a land that I will go for so that you know what to look for. So this is a 43 acres is based in Wales. This is a beautiful area in Wales. I've helped clients in this region. It has here under offer. That means that someone's already put a bid on it. They've taken it off of the market, so you can't purchase it now. It's a shame. But here it has 43 acres of land. It says here mixed pasture and woodland. That basically means you have areas that are going to be flat and areas that are going to have trees in the woodland. Its own natural supply, so this is good. It has on here caravan on site for over 15 years. Meaning that if you were going to have a caravan on there, or if you were going to have a cabin or something else that isn't a brick, basically, or something that's more not permanent, but something that's more temporarily, then in this region, it's absolutely fine. You know, there isn't any public access way on this area. The town is just 25 minutes away, which is brilliant. So if you need to get extra supplies. So these are things that are really, really positive. I'm looking at the pictures. The view is amazing. You can see the stream. They even have outbuildings there already. So if you are someone who's going to have your horses or your sheep or whatever, or even a barn of chickens, you don't have to spend money to build any of those infrastructure. So this is a positive and add, and that will be enough for me to call the agent and say, I'm going to book an appointment to come and view the place in person. So now, question number 4. Are the sellers open to payment plans? So maybe you're thinking, is this a situation, if I speak to the seller, could I pay in installments? Which is a really, really good question. I'm going to be honest with you. When it comes to agricultural land, buying agricultural land is the cheapest in comparison to buying a house with land around it. But even though it's cheap, you will find that farmers are less flexible when it comes to contracts and payments, if I'm honest. Farmers usually prefer cash transactions, and even majority of banks may not actually offer loans or mortgages for land purchases. In some cases, even especially if you're doing a tenure situation where you have to prove to the farmer that they should pick you, they may actually tell you to take a screenshot or prove that you have the funds in your account first before even putting in a tenure or a bid. So they are very, very strict. So 8 out of 10 times, it is usually a cash transaction. I haven't met a client yet who has been able to get a mortgage on a land or has been able to get a loan from the bank or has been able to do payment plans with a farmer to buy land. I personally haven't. I'm not saying that it does not exist. I'm just saying that in my career, I haven't come across that. So the 5th question, what features to look for when buying land? This is really important. Again, what is it that you're looking for? I always say when I'm looking for land for other clients, the first thing I do is look for, green belts, basically rows of trees or things that may give you privacy. And if there isn't any, that would be something that I will put into the design. The first thing is plant a whole row of trees or bushes or shrubs, something that would shield you from the wind and also give you a bit of privacy. I always say go for natural water. It's easier to have a space where natural water flows than for you to spend 20k or 10k building a borehole or a well, because if you have the budget for it, why not? But if you don't have the budget, then I would say try and see if you can find a piece of land. It may not be water that goes through your land, but where you can walk to access it. Fertile soil, of course, you want fertility, because if you are going to be growing your own food, you want to make sure that the soil is good. Make sure that it's not flooding, because there's some areas where maybe the soil could be poor and there's no aeration in the soil. If you have the knowledge, maybe to be able to utilize that space and be able to make the soil better over time, then brilliant. Maybe you have the budget to hire a permaculture consultant, someone like myself, or a landscaper who will be able to do that for you. But if you haven't got the budget, then you have to obviously do this by yourself. Then maybe it's just easier to find a piece of land that's one less thing to think about, basically. It would be nice to have some trees on there. Trees are wonderful. It's beautiful to have trees as part of your design. Maybe even a little bit of a woodland, so that you can start harvesting your own firewood. And safety. You want to think about safety. Maybe is there any gates? Maybe is there any fencing around? That's just something that you have to also think about. So when it comes to looking for land again and seeing if this land's right for me, you have to, think, why are you buying this land? What is the reason that you're buying this land? If it's for a homestead, so this means that it's just going to be you and just your family, then I would definitely say natural water, avoid permanent pasture, make sure there's no restrictions, a good ratio between woodland and pasture land, reduced overage. Maybe you want to build something in your lifetime, and no public pathways. You want to have your own privacy. If you are buying land collectively as a community, maybe you're starting a co-op and maybe you want to have a farm as part of that, then you want to be looking at arable and equestrian lands. These tends to be quite good places to start. Make sure there's multiple water sources. If you're going to be sharing it between 5 people or 5 families or 20 families, you want to make sure that there's water going through around the land. Again, agricultural planning permission. In farming communities, it is easier to be able to get that done, basically. You want to make sure that woodland. So when it comes to, if I go back to agricultural planning permission, these are the times when I would say, if you're going to be in a national park or an area, or I say A stands for area of outstanding beauty, then planning permission might be a bit more difficult in those areas. So I would say avoid those kind of areas. As a community, it'd be lovely to have woodland, because then you can harvest your own firewood, ponds as well, extra protein. Look at, again, restrictive covenants. I've been in cases where somebody was going to put a bid on the land and I've had to intervene and say, hold on a second, hold that. Look at the contract. It says here, you are not allowed to have any cabins or any camping in this woodland. And the reason why they were buying the woodland, their business was to have a camping site. So straight away, you would have got a fine. And some of these fines can be thousands of pounds, basically. So again, looking at your contract. And as a community, in a farming community, you want to have private road access, right? You want it to be private so that you know exactly who's coming down the road. So in this next section, we did have our wonderful guest speaker. Hopefully, maybe I might do another event and maybe invite her back again for those who wants to ask her questions. But I will talk about her briefly so that you know who she is. She is a wonderful young mother, a business owner, and a homeschooler. And after moving on from her marriage in London, she started a brand new chapter in Wales, proving her strength and her determination. And that particular day, she was sharing her success story and she was sharing her challenges as well, purchasing land in Wales. So just going to do it again, a quick call out to anybody, or if you know somebody, are you somebody who owns land or owns a building or farm? Are you interested in sharing your burden with like-minded people, or have you just purchased land and you would like to share your success story. Currently, we are looking for those kind of people because we want to connect with them and also introduce them to other like-minded people. So again, if you do fall under any of these categories, please do contact microcommunitiesorg@gmail.com, and please again feel free to connect with us. So just to make you aware, I have done a part two. Hopefully, I will be recording a part two and also be uploading that as well. So please do keep an eye out for that. And in the part two, it was mainly about how to live in an off-grid community. So at the time, we will be talking about how to pull your money in, so how to purchase land collectively, how to protect yourself legally as well. And also I will be going through examples of how to start co-ops and examples of people who has done it, communities who has done it, and success stories. And our guest speaker as well will talk a bit more about his experience, which I will actually take some parts of it and also release that as well, because those are really, really good questions that I feel like people should have access to as well. So just again, a big thank you. If you have lasted through this presentation, thank you. I really, really hope that this information was really beneficial. We do have a Telegram group, so please feel free to join our Telegram group and also, connect with like-minded people. Again, I've got our website there, microcommunities.org.uk. You will find more information on there. And if you do want to join and be part of our wonderful farmstead community, again, please register your interest. Any questions that you have, maybe you are shy to comment below, then feel free to take my email down and to connect and send any questions via that email. That's microcommunitiesorg@gmail.com. And again, thank you so much for joining me through this journey of this presentation. And I really, really hope that this presentation was beneficial.